Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we actually have quite a few different things to go and talk about over here, and some kind of bad news when it comes to PlayStation and the PlayStation Studios. Now, as you guys may or not have seen, a lot of the economy, a lot of just everything, gaming companies especially, have been going through a bit of a, well, not best spot. We've been seeing a lot of issues, a lot of layoffs, a lot of drama, and so far we saw Sony basically have a chance to go and ski on through. And that is kind of until right now. We're actually hearing some really bad PlayStation 5 news going on for game studios behind the PlayStation industry, or we're now just seeing bad things such as jobs being cut, etc. So we're going to go talk about this, talk about the drama, talk about everything else in between, and as well, if you guys are brand new, make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We also obviously have the brand new Best Buy MetaQuest 3 pre-orders linked down below with a bunch of pre-order bonuses. If you guys want to go check that out, technically a hashtag ad. All linked down below, and the how links in the description comment section if you guys want to, and of course the Twitter and Twitch stream, and I want to hear your thoughts and comments all down below. So as you guys kind of heard throughout the intro of this video, we've been seeing a little bit of the gaming industry shaking up, and kind of the bad shaking, not like the good where it's shaking on up and there's a bunch of really cool games coming out and new genres and new things. Right now we're kind of on the shake down, or a lot of these big game companies and big studios, number one, want to maintain either their current position, like in terms of like operation cost, revenues, or sometimes realizing that maybe some of the games they're, well, doing are not doing the best. Like a good example is we made a video talking about how like Marvel was basically losing a lot of money, like literal Marvel. I'm sure all of you guys watching or at least familiar with the term or the company. But part two of this is that some of these big game studios have been taking a little bit more hits than expected. We made a video talking about the fact that, well, some companies like Team 17 and also other various games that the people who made Fall Guys might be running into either big layoffs or studios shutting down. Same with the Saints Row team, like the company who literally made Saints Row is pretty much gonzo at this point because the game just wasn't selling that well. And all this stuff put together is a very worrying sign, because even right now, the Last of Us studio, Naughty Dog, I'm sure you guys know, PlayStation themselves is now cutting developers. So like this is the first time I've seen the news from Sony and PlayStation. This is specifically PlayStation 2. This is specifically Naughty Dog of the PlayStation studios is now going through some layoffs. They're now actually cutting some people off. They're getting rid of some developers. And well, this is scary. Now, this is not the biggest deal because this is normal company stuff, but it's still concerning if you guys ever go through this. So as we've kind of talked about over here, we had layoffs over in Epic, where this is kind of a big drama. This will be really quick, but I'm going to give you guys something to the stage. Like throughout this past week, Epic Games, one of the biggest game companies in the entire planet, literal Fortnite itself, they shared, hey, we shared earlier, we are laying off around 16% of Epic employees. We're divesting Bandcamp and spinning off some of the other companies they have. And like they said, we've been spending way more money than we earn for a while now, investing in the next evolution of Epic and growing Fortnite as a metaverse-inspired system. Like they've been trying to go and push the stuff of the gaming industry over here was an issue. Same with Xbox report, this is a little bit earlier on this year, and it's still been ongoing. There's been a few additional waves of this. More Xbox employees impacted as part of Microsoft's 10,000 layoffs, where there is literally people in the gaming sphere who had layoffs. Bloomberg has reported that more Xbox employees have lost their job this week as part of Microsoft's ongoing plan to implement 10,000 layoffs throughout the company, while the Surface and HoloLens division has also been affected. So quite literally, like these companies are having issues. According to the outlet, the Xbox reductions this time have affected the marketing team and gaming ecosystem group, although specifics have yet to be revealed. Head of Xbox Phil Spencer also reportedly emailed people too as well, saying, I encourage everyone to take the time and space necessary to process these changes and support your colleagues. But like, this is why it's rough. This is now the first time we've seen Sony and PlayStation doing this. With The Last of Us studio, Naughty Dog is cutting developers. The PlayStation first-party studio behind Uncharted and Last of Us Part 2 is laying off now dozens of contractors. So the video game industry is currently facing a big wave of layoffs, as I kind of explained. And even contract developers at PlayStation's first-party studio. This looks a little bit more, I guess, like scary, because it's literally PlayStation. Like, this is literally a PlayStation studio itself. Naughty Dog. And like, I'm sure you guys have heard of Naughty Dog, or at least bare minimum have heard of Uncharted, either saw the movie, played the games, or Last of Us, saw the show, or played the games, either or. So basically, Kotaku has learned that the maker of hits like Uncharted 4, Thief's End, and Last of Us Part 2 have begun cutting contracts short for dozens of workers. Layoffs were communicated internally at the Santa Monica, California-based studio last week, according to two sources familiar with the situation. Departments ranging from art to production were impacted, but the majority of those laid off worked in quality assurance testing. Now, I don't want to say like it's not the biggest deal, like I mentioned before. Companies do layoffs. They have to trim costs. If they're not needed, or maybe like a good example is like whenever Spider-Man is all done. Ideally, they have those people just go and transition to Wolverine, or if they're making the next Spider-Man game or any other like smaller IPs, or maybe help out other studios if they can, have to float around, work on marketing stuff, work on sponsorships, work on patches for Spider-Man, work on DLCs, whatever. There's usually a spot for it. But sometimes there is one of those things where like the game is out, we don't need as many people, we'll lay off some folks, or they do contract work and then the contracts end. Like it's business, it's fine. But it just is more scary on the big gaming wave where every company is doing this. A lot of companies are either getting bankrupt or getting caught off, which sucks. So as we mentioned too, a lot of this stuff is also a lot of these things from range and like art, ranging from art to production to everything else, like also quality assurance too. And that kind of stinks because we want to have quality assurance. Like if they're making a game or working on a game, we want to make sure the game is a good, well-working game that people enjoy, that people like, that people want to rock out. That's a good thing. And the fact that we're losing this kind of might be a little bit rough. Although maybe they just don't have a game at the point right now where they need to have someone doing it. But some folks are also concerned that maybe the Last of Us multiplayer game might also be either getting canceled. We've been seeing some big drama behind that, or it may not be turning out as well. Hopefully not. Hopefully that game comes out, I'd play it. But at the same time, some folks are saying this may not just be a vibe. They may not like it. And also maybe makes sense too with quality assurance. They may not need as many people on contract if the game's not coming out because there's nothing to quality assure. Now, there's a bit of speculation on the drama for it, but either way. The sources said at least 25 developers were part of the downsizing. Full-time staff, though, thankfully, do not appear to have been part of the cuts. Naughty Dog's headcount is still over 400 as of July. Now, as I mentioned a few times throughout this video, it doesn't seem like the craziest, biggest drama, thankfully, but this is the very first time we've seen it in the news and affected by folks for the PlayStation end. Xbox, as I showed you guys earlier on this year, did have a little bit of issues, although they kind of make more sense. Like, look at a Redfall, look at like a Halo Infinite. Like, those games are just not commercial successes, and it would make sense of why they'd want to cut that back. Same with a lot of like Xbox first-party game studios. We know a few games are in development such as like Fable, but not as many as we're probably expecting from PlayStation as of this second. Because as you guys know, Xbox is more on the buying and acquisition side, or working deals with Game Pass, or then making them themselves, which might still work out good. We'll have to see. But as of right now, thankfully, Naughty Dog's core employees are fine, but even then still, contract work from people doing art, production, and quality assurance is also a big deal. So sources tell Kotaku, though, as well, that no severances were also being offered. If they're contract-based, we get it, but at the same time, those currently laid off are still going to be affected by this kind of bit. And they said the impacted developers are as well as remaining employees are being pressured to keep the news quiet, though, which is why it's a little more scary. Their contracts won't be officially terminated until the end of October, and they'll be expected to work through the rest of the month. Sony did not immediately respond to the request for comments. So far, PlayStation is staying silent. And one of the lines that kind of makes me concerned is that they were incentivized to keep the news quiet. They were encouraged to keep the news quiet. And that's one of those things that I kind of see and I get a little bit worried on. Because, I mean, it's not fun news. I don't want to talk about it. But I also don't want to have a manager or a VP go and say what I can and can't say, especially when it comes to businesses or everything else. Like, I would want to be able to go and say this. I want to tell my peers. I want to start looking for jobs. I want to mind going on LinkedIn. All that stuff matters a lot to me because I want to make sure my own job security is safe rather than, the company. So the fact that that even happened too is a little bit on the sketchy side, although these are more on the contract based rather than anything else. So it may not be the world's, I don't want to say biggest deal. It's still someone's job, but it's still kind of crazy to see. So despite hit ratings for the recent HBO adoption of The Last of Us, a multiplayer spinoff though, which like I said might be in question right now, off the zombie shooter based on the first game's factions mode, has struggled in development. Bloomberg reported in June that Sony had diverted resources away from the project following a negative internal review by Bungie. So basically, this even like with PlayStation's other studio, don't forget Bungie's now owned by this, where they probably checked out the game, they maybe saw the vibes, they're like, hey, would we play this? Would you not play it? What do you guys think? And they're kind of like, well, maybe not. And the recently acquired live service powerhouse behind Destiny 2. One source now tells Kotaku that the multiplayer game, while not completely canceled, is basically on ice at this point, and that would once again kind of explain the quality assurance folks not, being there. Like, if there's nothing to quality assure, they got to start from scratch, they want to get rid of them. The layoffs also come just a few months after studio co-president Evan Wells announced his retirement at the end of 2023 after working at Naughty Dog for 19 years. Neil Druckmann, the creative director and lead co-writer on both of the most recent Uncharted and Last of Us games, as well as contributed to HBO's show, revealed they were structuring the studio leadership around the same time. So this might be kind of bad news. This might be really bad news, the fact that Sony studios are finally getting a little bit of layoffs, although based on contract side, and kind of following suit in the gaming industry. And as well also might mean there's even more big games being canceled, depending on The Last of Us, and I want to hear your thoughts and comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope I presented pretty well. If you guys did enjoy it, please make sure you guys are subscribed. Definitely go check out the Best Buy pre-order links for the MetaQuest 3 linked down below. If you guys want to check it out, there's a lot of cool pre-order bonuses for Best Buy, and of course the Twitter and Twitch stream, and subscribe if you guys are new, and I appreciate y'all for watching here in the first place.